Hey everybody, before we begin this episode of After School Yu-Gi-Oh, I just want to make a few notes. This lesson was created about 6 weeks ago, the week before Dimension of Chaos was released. I was about 85% done with the episode, but then YCS San Jose came up, and then I got the flu, and then a bunch of other shit happened. So I know I'm a bit late with this lesson. Things have changed since then, and Majespecters hasn't made quite the impact I expected it to, but I decided to upload this episode anyways. So you can consider this the lost episode of After School Yu-Gi-Oh. I hope you're all enjoying your winter break, and happy holidays, and enjoy. Happy fall, After School Yu-Gi-Oh students. PDF here, bringing you the 15th session of After School Yu-Gi-Oh. It's been a while since my last lesson. Have you guys been keeping up with your studies? Well, either way, I'm here to help you boost up your dueling grades with a refreshing new deck dissection for the season. It's an exciting time for Yu-Gi-Oh right now because last weekend was the release of Dimension of Chaos and the ban list of November 2015, which means it is time for a completely different meta for the holiday season. And as one format ends, a new one begins, and we have no idea what decks are going to do well for 2016. As you may have heard, the ban list delivered critical limitations to many meta decks. Burning Abyss, Shaddoll, Tellarknight, Cleafort, and Necros were all hit by the ban hammer, which has pretty much rendered these decks and the entire first season of After School Yu-Gi-Oh! Useless. But the absence of these decks is going to leave a void to be filled with lots of new decks. And today, I'm going to teach you about a new deck from Dimension of Chaos that is already causing quite the storm at many local card shops. You know what deck I'm talking about. It's Majespecters, ritual beasts for people with money. But all jokes aside, Majespecters is quickly becoming one of the most expensive decks in the game, and its playstyle is similar to Ritual Beast. Let's go over these similarities. Both these decks are comprised of wind monsters. They are structured around searching for spell and trap cards. They both have complicated combos which can lead to annoying long turns. The monsters are recyclable and never seem to go away. And lastly, they have built-in effects that protect themselves, which make them a real pain in the butt to get rid of. But although they look similar on paper, let's not get it twisted, they are completely different decks. Majespecters are a much better deck. They just are, and they're a lot easier to learn as well. The archetype is comprised of pendulum monsters. So far, none of them have pendulum effects, but they do have scales. Every monster has an effect to search whenever they are normal or special summoned. And lastly, and most importantly, none of them can be targeted or destroyed by opponents' card effects. So get ready to side out all your back row because virtually nothing will affect Majespecters. The monsters are only half the engine. The Majespecters also have a full roster of spells and traps that have an out to almost any monster that you can put in front of them. For the small cost of contributing one win spellcaster type monster, they can either pop, spin, banish, or negate and destroy a monster effect. Already you can tell that this deck is pretty formidable. But let's look at these cards individually. Bunbuku the Kun is the heart of the deck. When it is summoned, you can search for any Majespecter monster from your deck, which in turn will pretty much let you search for any Majespecter card in your deck. And remember, all the Majespecter monsters can't be targeted or destroyed by opponent's card effects. He's a level 3 5 scale. Nikotama the Cat lets you search for any Majespecter card during the end phase. Just a slower but more versatile version of Bunbuku. It's a level 3 2 scale. Yada the Crow lets you search for a Majespecter spell. It's a level 4 5 scale. And Kyubi the Fox lets you search for a Majespecter trap. It's a level 4 2 scale. There's also Kirin the Unicorn, which has a quick effect to bounce back one pendulum monster from your monster zone and one monster your opponent controls. He's the only level 6 2 scale, so he can't be pendulum summoned in a pure Majespecter build. So you're going to need to tech in a 7 or 8 scale in order to take advantage of this monster. Now onto the spells and traps. Remember that all these cards need a tribute of a wind spellcaster monster as a cost in order to activate. Cyclone is a quick play spell that lets you target and pop a monster. Storm is a normal spell that lets you spin a monster back into the deck. Tornado is a trap that lets you banish a monster, and Tempest is a counter trap that lets you negate the special summon or effect of a monster. The only card in this deck that you can't search for is Majesty's Pegasus, the field spell. I mean, you can run Terraforming and search it out, but as your After School Yu-Gi-Oh tutor, I wouldn't recommend it. It boosts all Majespecter monsters by 300 attack and defense. But the real effect is attributing a wind spellcaster type monster to special summon a level 4 or lower Majespecter monster from your deck. So with the field spell, you can essentially get a free monster and search every turn. This deck is pretty powerful and fast. one of the first pure pendulum decks that can take full advantage of all the generic pendulum support. Here's a list of additional cards that you can tech in to make your Majespecters even faster and more powerful. So you've seen the pieces of this deck, let's put them all together. Here's an ideal opening for Majespecters. All pendulum monsters, that's what you want. I'm also including the field spell and Luster the Draco Slayer to really speed things up. First, we're going to activate Luster and one of the other Majespecter cards in the pendulum scale. Use Luster's effect to pop the Fox and add another copy of Fox to your hand. Normal summon the Coon and search for a Majespecter monster. You're going to want to search for one you don't already have. Activate the field spell to tribute the Coon and special summon a Majespecter that you haven't used yet. In this case, we'll special summon the Crow to search for Majespecter Storm. Activate one of the 2 scales and pendulum summon all the monsters from your face-up extra deck and any other Majespecter monsters in your hand that you haven't used yet. The Fox will let you search for Majespecter Tempest, and the Cat will search for any Majespecter card you need at the end phase. As you can see, I didn't pendulum summon the other Crow in my hand because I already used its effect this turn and I don't want to overextend, so I'll just hang on to it in case my opponent blows up my Luster Draco Slayer. From here, you can set any spell or trap cards you search for this turn and go into a rank 3 or 4 play if you so wish. During the end phase, you're going to want to search for whatever scale you don't have in your hand. I'm going to get a 2 scale to go along with my 5 scale. Now I'm ready for anything my opponent tries to do to break my field. If you recall, I started with 5 cards at the beginning of this turn. Now I control 11. And next turn, unless my opponent can open the nuts and disrupt my plays, I'll pretty much be doing the same thing. And that is the true power of Majespecters. So now you know what makes Majespecters so great, but I'm sure you won't know how to beat it. While as awesome as this engine is, it is actually very fragile. All you really need to triple this entire deck is to never let them set up their scales. Here are great options that won't allow Majespecters to play Yu-Gi-Oh! If you are unable to play these cards, the next best thing would be to stop their search. If they can't get their pluses, they're going to have more bricks than the Great Wall of China. If for whatever reason you can't stop the search or their scales, you're going to want to stop their spells and traps. Without their impressive back row, they can't really do anything except for sit there and top deck while you beat over their puny monsters. And lastly, and I mean really lastly, this is probably your last line of defense. You can stop the monsters from recurring by taking them off the field. Do whatever you can and side accordingly, but as you can see, this deck is a lot more fragile than you would think. To sum it up, this deck's strength comes from its ability to generate pluses. It is also highly combo heavy, which will open you up to a lot of different plays. And I can't stress enough that these monsters are virtually impenetrable. They cannot be targeted or destroyed. Can you imagine all the cards you're going to dead draw into? Regeki, Torrential, Bottomless Trap Hole. Some of the most powerful one-ofs in the deck will now become useless. But as Newton's third law states, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The deck may generate a lot of pluses, but it also requires tremendous minuses. All the spells and traps require a tribute to activate, so they're all going to be a 2 for 1. And like with almost every combo heavy deck, you're going to open up with a brick hand more often than not. And even though these monsters are invincible to card effects, did I forget to mention that their stats are pretty low? Well, you should have guessed it, they're all cute little rodents. In short, this deck is very mighty and fast, and it will be sure to top for the next few weeks due to ignorance alone. But once people start catching on to Majespecters, a few carefully selected side deck cards can bring the whole engine to a halt. I still think this deck is worth learning and playing though, because it is the first true pendulum deck in the meta. Sure, you can bring up Klee Forts all you like, but the limitations of Klee held you back from a lot of pendulum shenanigans. I mean, I've never seen a Klee player go +6 on the first turn, have you? And while we're in this limbo of what decks will be good and what decks will be bad, Majespecters, being one of the newest decks and completely unaffected by the ban list, will be a safe bet for the new season along with Cosmos. I definitely recommend playing a few matches with Majespecters. I think they're going to be the start of some really nutty pendulum decks to come. I hope you've all learned a lot about Majespecters today. Don't forget, I also have my own channel for which I'm still working on making more videos. In addition to teaching new decks, I also give lessons on the fundamentals of the game that you can share with any new players or review for yourself as a nice refresher course. Thanks for watching everybody. PDF signing off.